Hello there friends and welcome. For today's Pathfinder Enhanced Edition guide we have a very special Lich Monk build, my very first ever monk guide. I must say I was actually surprised by how absolutely powerful Fist monks can be. That's right, we are going pure unarmed. You'll get loads of attacks per round, 7 normally or 8 with a monk special power. You also get lots of attacks of opportunities, all thanks to special monk abilities like Pummeling Style and Pummeling Bully that let you add free trip attacks to your character, just like the very powerful dog and wolf pets. Your damage might not seem like much at first, but in reality it is way higher than this. Let's take a look at our damage with just one normal hit. All of these procs actually come from a single attack, that's right. It's close to 500 damage just on a normal hit. Lastly, this character is quite powerful defensively as well, despite not having that high armor class, although you can increase it higher, we have some penalties here. Through the aid of the Lich Mythic path, you'll get the ultimate survivability as well, such as being able to acquire higher than 1000 hit points, and lots of fun stuff through the Lich Mythic spells, such as immunity to any crowd control, critical hits, and most importantly, a very powerful lifesteal effect on every single one of your hits. Honestly, like I said before, this build is really OP and very fun to play as you'll get to unleash lightning fast attacks to punch any demon enemy into submission, even demon lords. So without further ado, let us get into our Lich Monk build, first with character creation. Alright, so Monk actually has a lot of fun archetypes. Stuff like Quarterstaff Master and Sohei are pretty good. The same for Zen Archer, but that's more of an archery monk. I plan on covering these archetypes later on. For this guide in particular, my first monk build, I want to go with the classic monk, that is, one that attacks the enemies with just his fist, pure unarmed attacks, as that's what I imagine most people interested in a monk want to play as. And for that we have two choices: the normal monk or traditional monk. The main difference is traditional monk has high saves in everything, normal monk is just fortitude and reflex. The downside is you don't get to choose your key powers, they are already picked for you as you level. Honestly, the key powers are kinda bad overall, I'm afraid. And the ones you get for free as a traditional monk are more than enough, especially the passive ones. At most you'll just be spamming the key power that grants you an extra attack per round, and as far as I'm aware, both monk and traditional monk get it for free anyways. So I'll be going with traditional monk. As far as race, as usual I like humans, and as far as this build in particular, we are going to be somewhat feat starved for quite a lot of the game. As a monk we'll have to get many unique feats, including the trip line, which I don't often pick from my builds. Even with the monk bonus feats, we still need a lot of feats. On the other hand, from the upper mid to the late game, you'll have some free feat selections, so you can also go with other races if you want. For background, it's the usual Street Urchin and Pickpocket for the bonus to initiative. As far as ability point allocation, I'd much rather focus all out into strength, as this is what both our attack rolls and damage will come from. We won't have to bother with the dexterity feat tags, plus it's way easier to increase strength through the size spells than it is dexterity. We do need 13 intelligence at least, because while as a monk we can get trip for free, for the greater trip feat we'll have to get the other requirements. You can leave wisdom at something like 14. I wouldn't dump charisma because since we are going with Lich, eventually your charisma will contribute to your hit points, but that's very late game only. I would then go with 12 dexterity and 12 constitution. And if you're wondering about armor class, this build doesn't really need it. Now as far as skill points, perception as we have decent wisdom, athletics because of our high strength, and the other points are truly up to you. I would certainly go with use magic device, as having access to divine scrolls is always a great benefit. And then either mobility, trickery or stealth. It doesn't really matter much because we won't have high dexterity. Now as far as your feat allocation for level 1, first weapon focus and unarmed strike. The main reason is as early as level 1 our flurry of blows ability is already active, which grants us 2 attacks. So it is in your best interest to increase your AB as high as you can even early. And then we'll get started into our first unique monk feat, Pummeling Style. To me this is the best style by far, as I will show you later on, mostly because of the other feats that come from this, Pummeling Bully and Pummeling Charge. To put it simply, you'll be tripping enemies for free, just like a dog and wolf pet, and we all know how OP they are, and getting tons of attacks of opportunities and extra damage from this. By default, the normal pummeling style feat is also good for the early levels, because it lets your fists overcome enemies' damage reduction, and even some of the early chapter 1 demons already have this. Then as a monk bonus feat, improved initiative. Stuff like range style can be helpful, but like I said, armor class isn't really that needed for us. For a deity, if you're going with Lich, then I recommend Argatoa for the unique dialogues you get, plus she also lets you be lawful evil, and this is very important, you have to be lawful evil as a Lich Monk. The best monk here in the game can only be equipped by lawful evil monks anyways, so that's a win for us. For level 2 as a monk bonus feat, I would go with Deflect Arrows. After all, this is pretty much a unique monk feat. And it lets you avoid one ranged attack. It can help since we aren't min-maxing armor class. We also get evasion at level 2, which is amazing. For level 3, Combat Expertise. While this is an AC focused feat, the main reason we are picking it is to qualify for greater trip later on. The best thing is, just at level 3, your monk will already get the best key power of them all, extra attack, which is why I said the other key powers you get don't matter that much. At level 4, increased strength, which is also what you should be getting on all of the other levels. For level 5, be sure to pick Outflank, as monks are high base attack bonus classes, they can pick it earlier. Then for your first style strike, this is huge, we want Leg Sweep. So it's pretty much a free trip attempt against any target. It's just once per round, but it's more than enough. Once we get Greater Trip, this will proc an attack of opportunity, even if the enemy is immune to trip. If you've ever played with the tripping pets like the Dog and Wolf, you already know how OP having trip for free is. For level 6, as a bonus feat, trip of course. Just like with the bully pets, the reason we get trip is because even though we aren't actually using this feat, it does grant a bonus to our trip attempts, including free trip attempts like from Leg Sweep. For level 7, it's kinda crazy, we already have a lot of feats we want just at this level, like Fierce Fall, Greater Trip, but for now, we want to focus on the other pummeling style feats, starting with Pummeling Bully, which lets us get another trip attempt whenever we make full attacks or flurry of blows against a single target. I have tested this together with Leg Sweep, and the end result is you get basically 2 trip attempts against the same enemy, which is huge. For level 9, we want the last pummeling style feat, Pummeling Charge. This is very similar to the Pounce ability, as it lets you charge and then get all of your full attacks. Trust me, this ability is super strong, especially because through Lich and Mythic Progression, we'll get a lot of abilities that highly empower our charge hits. We also get to pick a second style strike here, but you can only use one, at least until level 15 monk, which we aren't getting with this build. But anyways, you can also go for Hammer Blow. With Hammer Blow you can increase your damage. At level 10 as a free monk feat, Improved Critical, and Unarmed Strike. Sadly, fists have pretty poor critical range of 19 to 20 only, but we get so many strikes that it makes up for that. For level 11, definitely Greater Trip. While you could potentially pick this earlier, I just don't find much space for it. Greater Trip further increases your chances of tripping by giving you a +2 bonus, and most importantly, whenever you trip an enemy, you get a free attack of opportunity, which means pretty much an extra attack against that foe. This is simply huge. The more free attacks you have, the better. Now, starting from level 12 onwards, this is when I would multiclass your monk. The thing is, by level 11 we kinda already have everything we could want for a monk, especially because the last upgrade to your Flurry of Blows, granting you an extra attack per round for free, comes exactly at level 11. The only things you would keep gaining if you kept your monk pure, well, basically it's just an upgrade to your fist damage. At most, it would mean an average of 5 extra damage at level 20. The problem is, this extra damage doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme, because as you're about to see, through Mythic Progression you'll get so much bonuses to damage, especially with the Lich powers and spells, that like I said, it doesn't matter. And I do think there are other classes that can offer a lot more. I'd say you basically have 2 choices here. First, one level of Ranger and Demon Slayer is always amazing, for the extra +2 to hit and damage against demons. Besides that, you can choose to then fully focus into either Fighter and Mutation Warrior, or for example Slayer and Spawn Slayer. I do think Fighter offers more, because through Fighter, we'll get both the mutagen, which is great, and also weapon training, plus weapon specialization and greater weapon focus. And if going Fighter, I would actually delay the Demon Slayer dip for later, because I really want to get the mutagen as early as we can. Plus I personally think Mutation Warrior kind of fits a monk. Instead of making wine, we are making mutagens. For a feat at level 12, if you have pets that can trip, then you might consider going with Tandem Trip, because this highly increases the chances of your trip working, as this lets you roll twice and take the best result. For level 13, Fury's Fall, which further increases our trip's power, by also adding our dexterity bonus to the final result. And then, I don't think Perfect Strike is as needed, because this build gets an absurd amount of bonuses to attack rolls anyways, but you can pick it if you want. And as far as combat reflexes, we can delay this for later. There are other ways of getting attacks of opportunities for feat-starved builds, such as the ever-ready Mythic ability, and the Clemency of Shadow's Ring. I would personally pick Power Attack now, as by this point we already have 4 Mythic ranks in Lich, and a lot of extra bonuses to attack rolls from it. When fighting with your fists, your extra damage from Power Attack won't be as high as if you had a two-handed weapon, but it can still help because of how many attacks we get per round. At level 14, we'll get our Mutagen at last, and of course you want to go with Strength. I would then keep Mutation Warrior until level 5, before going for the Demon Slayer dip, as we do need the extra bonus feats for now. Then at level 15, Dazzling Display, and Shattered Defenses just in time for the Frightful Aspect spell, as with almost all of my builds, to proc this for free. In the case of Lich, you even have an aura that attempts to shake the enemies anyways. Then at level 16, for weapon training, be sure to pick Natural, as it also works for unarmed strikes. Now for level 17 is when I would go for the Demon Slayer dip, especially as at this point you're just fighting demons anyways. Then as a feat, weapon specialization, unarmed strike. Now I would just keep progression into fighter so we can get greater weapon focus later on, although it's not that needed. Of course, you could potentially combo with medium base attack bonus classes, but since Monk is high base attack bonus, I'd rather keep 2 other high base attack bonus classes, not to mess up our progression. As for extra feats, so at this point, the feat selection is up to you. Like I said, it would happen eventually, but it takes a long time to get there, which is why I prefer to go with humans early on. You can, for example, go with Cleave, and Cleaving Finish, and Combat Reflexes too, which is what I'm picking now. Kinda late, but like I said, there are other ways of increasing your attacks of opportunity before. For level 19, I'd pick Blind Fight, if only because at the end game, you fight some demons that have sources of concealment not bypassed by the True Seeing buff. Your Mutagen discovery kinda doesn't matter. Be sure not to pick the Feral Mutagen, unlike most builds however, it is very incompatible with the Monk class, because the claw attacks you get will replace your unarmed strikes, and we simply cannot afford that. You lose basically all of your special monk abilities like Flurry of Blows and Pummeling Style. Also do note that for the same reason, monks, at least unarmed monks, are very much incompatible with this called Lesser Beast Totem Power, because it is also going to replace your fist attacks. You might as well just go for spontaneous healing, because as far as preserve organs, Liches already get immunity to critical hits and sneak attack. Then for level 20, as our final feat, the last unique fighter feat, Greater Weapon Focus and Unarmed Strike. Alright, now let's cover Mythic Progression for our Lich Monk, and this is where things get really fun. A lot of the abilities picked here highly empower our build. For your first ascension, don't go with Close to the Abyss. As I've just said for the Feral Mutagen, Close to the Abyss is incompatible with Monk as well. While it doesn't replace your attacks, Flurry of Blows and Pummeling Style require you to only have fist attacks, so you won't get to attack with the extra gore hit from this if you want to use those abilities. Anyways, if you want something that will always work, just go with Instrument of Freedom. As for your first Mythic ability, definitely go for Last Stand. As I said, this build won't focus on armor class, and even if you have Reach from side spells, Last Stand is still amazing to pick early on, just to ensure our character truly will never die, until you get the super OP Lich buffs anyways. For Mythic rank 2, I'd say you have 2 choices, either Mythic Trip, or Mythic Unarmed Strike for higher unarmed damage. The thing is, these 2 feats, they take a while to scale properly, as they all scale based on half your Mythic ranks. So at this point it's just a +1 to trip or +1 to damage. You might as well already go for Unarmed Strike if you want higher damage, since it works no matter what. For Mythic rank 3, Ever Ready. It's an amazing feat, especially because we get multiple attacks of opportunities per round with this build. This will highly increase both your damage and attack rolls. For once, I'm building a Lich character that is non-merged, so we do get our Mythic Spellbook added separately to our character, and it scales based on your Mythic rank, so at Mythic rank 3, we'll have up to level 3 spells, 4 at Mythic 4, and so on, until the ultimate level 10 at Mythic 10. Because we mostly want the Lich buffs, and we get them pretty early, this will work just fine for our character, as we are already a full martial anyways. For your skeleton ally, I still prefer the marksman, because as a ranged character, it won't be getting hit much, which means you won't have to bother healing it. Now, Lich powers, this is where things get really fun. Amusingly enough, Lich is by far the mythic that has the most synergy with Monk. There are a lot of mythic powers here that will highly increase your damage. While you could potentially pick Decaying Touch first, which I suppose is the most direct Monk Lich power because it enhances your unarmed attacks by 1d6 plus mythic rank when it comes to damage, I'd much rather go for Death Rush at first. With Death Rush, whenever you charge or use a combat maneuver, which includes Strip, the enemy will suffer 1d6 points of damage per mythic rank. Irresistible damage, by the way. The main reason I'm picking this so early is, remember, as a Lich we get the Pummeling Charge ability, which lets us charge and also full attack. So it is super easy to apply this to every single one of your hits. Plus, we also get free trip attempts, at least 1 or even 2 per enemy, for even more damage. So to put it simply, it's super stacked for our monk build. And the scaling is simply way better than the Decaying Touch. Now, as I said, as a no-merged Lich, you'll get your Spellbook as early as Mythic 3. And I'll guide you through our separate Spellbook for the best spell selections later on. For Mythic rank 4, Mythic Critical and Unarmed Strike. Then for your first Skeletal upgrade, always Fighter. Fighter is just super stacked compared to the others. Any bonus feat, and we definitely want Shatter Defenses, bypassing all of the annoying requirements, and this does work for ranged attacks too. Then since we are a ranged Skeleton, Longbow weapon focus, and also Bow's weapon training. As I said, you get a lot from this. At Mythic 4, you'll get your level 4 Lich spells, and this is super important because at this level you get the extremely overpowered Vampiric Blade. This not only highly increases the damage of every single one of your attacks, but it also heals you for the same amount, 1d6 plus caster level. You basically never run out of hit points, especially since as a Lich you also have tons of temporary hit points. It's that good. For Mythic rank 5, Mythic Charge. As I said, we have a lot of stuff that empowers charge. Pummeling Charge, Death Rush, now Mythic Charge. Your Lich Monk will basically delete anything on a charge. For Mythic rank 6, because at this point we already have Power Attack through normal progression, I'd go for Mythic Power Attack. This will increase your damage a lot higher than, for example, Mythic Unarmed Strike or some other bonuses. And then as a second Lich power, I'm once again delaying the Decaying Touch, I'm afraid, because Fear Control is just super OP. It grants you first a +4 Profane bonus to attack rolls, which is amazing, and then a +1 to damage per Mythic rank. For Mythic level 7, what I would pick now is Archmage Armor. As a Lich, we do get the Mage Armor spell added to our separate spellbook. Now, for Mythic rank 8, you have two choices. Mythic Specialization, which culminates in +5 to damage at Mythic 10, or Mythic Trip. And remember, you'll also be able to pick Mythic Weapon Focus at Mythic 10, because we get greater weapon focus somewhat late to normal progression. So your choices of Mythic feats at Mythic 8 and 10, well, you have to pick 2 out of these 3 feats. Mythic Trip, Mythic Specialization, and later Mythic Weapon Focus. Personally, I'd go for more damage, because at this point, we already have enough bonuses to AB as is. I'd pick Mythic Weapon Specialization and Unarmed Strike. For your Skeleton upgrade at Mythic 8, honestly, I just go for the first Cleric upgrade here, and later you can get Barbarian or Magus, or just switch their order. It doesn't matter that much. Your Mythic ability at 9 can be anything you want, because most of the ones here don't really matter that much. I'd rather just go for Always a Chance. Missing on ones can be pretty annoying, especially when you have so many attacks per round. And your attack bonus gets so high that even if you roll a 1, you can still hit even high armor class enemies later on. Now for your final Lich power, this is when I'd go for Decaying Touch. Weapon of Death can be interesting as well, but overall Decaying Touch will add more to damage at this Mythic rank. As for Mythic rank 10, as I said, choose between Mythic Weapon Focus, since we have greater weapon focus, or Mythic Trip. Overall, I think Weapon Focus is better because it applies to all your attacks, including trips. Alright, let's cover here for our Lich Monk now. For the Amulet slot, well, earlier you'll want Amulets of Mighty Fists because they enhance both the damage and attack rolls with your fist attacks. However, eventually starting from chapter 4, you'll want to upgrade into Valex's Magnifying Amulet, as we'll get the other bonuses elsewhere. For armor, for once we actually don't want any armor at all. While we have the proficiencies to equip it, it will block our most powerful monk abilities, and we don't want that. For robes, there are some early monk robes you can find, so just go with them, but ultimately, you'll definitely want the Robe of Malice, which is by far the best unique monk gear into the whole game. It will grant you a +5 bonus to damage and the attack rolls of your unarmed attacks, which is why you won't need the natural attack amulet anymore. Plus it even grants you armor class. For belts, at first belts that focus on strength, then strength and constitution, and ultimately you can just get physical perfection belts for +6 to all physical scores. For the glove slots, you have 2 choices. I think the claws of a sacred beast are overall the best. First, they actually grant you an extra enhancement bonus to unarmed attacks, which is why I have +5 on the robes and +1 from the claws. So our fists are as if they were +6 weapons. Lastly, if you attack evil enemies, basically all of them that matter, you'll get an extra 2d6 points of damage per hit, quite powerful. But since we are also going with fighter, Panzer's Gift Gloves are a viable choice too because they will enhance your unarmed weapon training by +2. For boots you have two choices. Raw-necked Sacrifice can provide a bit more defense, but honestly, because this build has amazing synergy with charge, I would just go for the Boots of Stampede for the huge up to +20 bonus to charge, especially as we are focused on athletics. For helmets, they don't actually matter that much for Aura Monk. Early game you can go with the Windmaster helmet for a +4 bonus to initiative, and there's of course Headbands of Wisdom as well, which can grant you higher armor class as a monk. Ultimately just go for Mental Perfection headbands like Darkness Caress, which is the best one, for both Wisdom and Charisma, which will count for your Lich's hit points at the end game. For the glasses slots, as usual, the Goggles of Piercing Gaze, but you can also go with the Broken Trickster glasses. They do increase both your Charisma and Wisdom, and also grant you quite powerful damage reduction. For the Cloak slot, as a Lich you have two choices. The Cloak of Darkest Rite will directly empower your own Lich. Meanwhile, the Lich Mythic Cloak, the Bound of Possibility, will highly increase the bonus to your undead allies' physical scores. Overall, I think the Bound of Possibility is a better choice because you empower a lot more characters than just your own Lich. For ring slots, the Bane of Spirit Ring is extremely powerful with this build, although you don't necessarily have to equip it on your Lich since any character can activate it on another party member. Being able to fully convert all your damage to force is amazing because we have so many extra damage procs, and force is irresistible. Plus, the hit point cost means nothing to us. First, we have an absurd amount of temporary hit points, and second, we have lifesteal on every hit anyways, so we are always topping out our hit points. Second, I like the Ring of Guiding Star to increase our initiative, as I didn't pick Mythic Initiative with this build, plus the secondary bonus to our party members' damage is great too. Lastly, for the braces slot, I went with your actual phylactery. If you turn the lucky braces you start the game out with into your phylactery, you can get it as a bracer. Otherwise, you would go with Braces of Armor. There isn't just much of a point because as a Lich, you can just cast Mage Armor yourself, and we get Mythic Mage Armor anyways. Alright, now let's cover weapons and quick slots for our Lich Monk. Amusingly enough, for once, we don't require any weapons, that's right, we just attack with our fists, as manly as it can get, and actually wielding weapons will reduce your build's potential, so don't. Quick slots, on the other hand, can be very useful for this build, mostly meta magic rods, because we do get a full spellbook even as a non-merged Lich. First, an extend meta magic rod, mostly to extend Vampiric Blade, and also Bone Shield, as by default they only last 1 minute per level. The Grandmaster's Rod can help when it comes to granting more temporary hit points, because if you use it with spells such as Feast of Blood, Siphon Life, and Vampiric Touch, you'll get hundreds of temporary hit points. And remember, as an evil Lich, you can even cast them on your own characters and then heal them afterwards. As means of rebuffing, you don't have to waste time casting them on the enemies. The Skeletal Finger Rod also has unique effects when used by a Lich, mostly just to quicken spells, so you can both full attack and also cast a spell. Good examples are Repurpose to generate undead minions for you, which yes you can do even as a no-merged Lich, or the lifesteal spells. Lastly, the Dragon Familiar Jarsigh Axe for the extra damage, since we'll just be converting its elemental damage into irresistible force anyways through Bane of Spirit, and it applies on every single one of our hits. Now before finishing this guide, let us cover the best spells for our Lich, since we do get a separate spellbook. For level 1, mostly Mage Armor, and also Shield. Eventually you'll get a more powerful spell that replaces Shield though. Besides that, I mean, just go with Inflict Light Wounds for some healing later on, it doesn't really matter. For level 2 spells, False Life and Mirror Image for the amazing defense it gives you, and you'll get this as early as Mythic 3. So that's a lot of extra defense your Lich will be getting, which is why I say you don't have to be max armor class. For level 3 spells, Power from Death is amazing, Vampiric Touch for temporary hit points. While you can potentially go with Haste, I think this is better left for other characters. Besides that, Mastery of Flash, because it has dual uses, you can use it to both damage the enemy irresistibly, or also heal your allies, both living and undead. Level 4 spells are huge, mostly because of how OP Vampiric Blade is. You cast this and you pretty much will never die, because of the huge lifesteal effect. Plus it even adds extra damage too. Greater False Life for more temporary hit points, and it does stack with normal False Life. Lastly, Eyes of the Bulldog. This has low duration, but will grant you a no-save level Drain Aura. Ideally, you want to cast this before battle starts with powerful enemies. Don't waste time in battle using it. For level 5, Deny Death can always help because, well, it makes any character immune to death. They won't die, but they will become paralyzed for the duration. Still, it beats dying, until battle ends. mostly just repurposed because it is your main spell to grant you undead minions. For level 6, definitely Bone Shield for the huge bonus to shield AC and immunity to critical hits, Siphon Life, which works just as Vampiric Touch for more temporary hit points, and besides that False Grace once again for a huge temporary hit points boost party-wide. For level 7 spells, mostly Blessing of Unlife because it is the buff that lets your allies become as if undead, for immunity and also healing purposes. Besides that, you can also use Feast of Blood for a crazy high amount of extra hit points. Level 8 no-merged Lich spells are kinda poor sadly, mostly Quickened and Brace of Death, because even if the enemy saves, they'll still be staggered by 1 round, which is great. Frightful Aspect sadly cannot be cast on Liches after they truly become a Lich, that is, at Mythic 9. As for level 9, mostly just Negative Eruption because of how powerful it is. It deals irresistible damage to the enemies, also fully heals anyone that's undead, including yourself, or under the effect of Blessing of Unlife, plus even grants you a massive amount of temporary hit points too. Well, alright friends, this was it for my Monk guide. If there's enough interest, I'll also post other Monk archetype builds more focused on weapons this time, such as Quarterstaff Monk or Sohei Monk, which has a pet, and also reach weapons, such as spears. If you found this guide useful, please remember to like, subscribe, and even consider becoming a channel member, as your support really helps keep the channel going. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.